Carroll is the founder of the Fortify Institute, and this is an organisation that works to educate people in cybersecurity. Jan saw a gap and she set about filling it. And a lot of things that you'll learn about Jan throughout this is that that's generally how she lived her life in her education, where she saw gaps, she worked to fill it and worked to help get other people to fill it also. A lovely squiggly career path, my favourite kind. I hope you enjoy. So Jan Carroll, your background has been very interesting to me because, well, there's been lots of kind of little mountains and bumps and changes in the road, and you're a very busy person who is always at every cybersecurity event that I'm at and more. And I get tired looking at your LinkedIn feed, I'm not going to lie.
That says something. From Jennifer Goggs.
But I think what I'd like to hear is really where it all began for you on the cybersecurity side, or maybe even before that. Like, I know you talked about your experience with your family and the army. Maybe let's start there.
Yeah. Well, I'll go even further back.
Yeah.
Because the army thing is my husband, and yeah. So when I grew up, my mum was separated. My parents were separated, and that was quite unusual. And it was of a time when it was very stigmatized. And these couples were in limbo. They couldn't divorce. They couldn't move on. Even funding a family like that and getting support was really, really difficult. So one of the things my mum did, we all grew up in a house that was full of love, and you always knew that you could do whatever you wanted. Okay? I was always really technical. I don't know where it came from, in that I was always the one pulling things apart, fixing them. As my dad wasn't around, I was always the one. And I had two brothers, but they weren't really into it. But I was always the one fixing stuff and putting sockets on things and all that. So when it became time to leave school, and I left school in 91, and that's 1991 for the younger
the last
people.
century, Jen. Yeah. Last century. I was 97. I can't mock you.
I have a house full of teenagers, so I'm used to it. Yeah, so I didn't feel restricted, okay? And my mum had a hairdressing business. My sister was a hairdresser. My brother was a hairdresser. And, so one side of the family was all that hairdressing side. My grandmother had, again, this was unusual for the time. She ran a fish wholesalers in Dublin Fish Market that she had inherited from her own mother. So we had all of these influences. So yeah. And we never really felt constricted to do a particular role. So, unsurprisingly, when I left school, I became an electrician.
Lovely.
So I did an electrical apprenticeship, yeah, and I loved it. Okay, absolutely loved it. And from there, I found it hard to get work. Okay, because even though I loved the role, I loved the job, and I was good at it, trying to get hired as a woman in that role was near on impossible. And you're pulling, like now I talk to people about networking and connections, but you're pulling on your connections just to get an interview, just to be seen. And then nowadays there's laws around these things, but at the time there wasn't. And they'd say, you're taking a man's job, why don't you work in a sweet shop? With all of these things.
Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't actually complete the apprenticeship. I ended up going to Shannon Aerospace and doing aircraft technician. They were doing a women in tech thing, and I did that for 6 months, moved down to Shannon. And in the meantime, I had joined the FCA. The FCA is the Reserve Army. It's now the Reserve Defence Forces, and they had only started taking women around then. And so I was doing that. That was just part-time for fun. And that's where I met my now husband.
Seems like it's better than Tinder, the FCA. And most people I know that have been in it ended up married to somebody who was in it later.
I know, but that but it meant that we were both very young, but he was off doing the army stuff. He'd be gone for 6 months at a time. So I went off to Shannon, and I was there for 6 months. And then when I came back from that, I decided I wanted to do the college thing. And then I went to college. I'm going to skip a lot of the next few bits. We settled down, we got married, and I had a couple of kids. And then at that point, I realized that the work I was doing at the time, and we had to move out to the back of beyond to be able to buy a house because, you know, the whole housing crisis. So
Yeah.
I was doing a crazy commute to Blanchardstown, EU Dublin at the time. I was working Blanchardstown IT. I was working there in computer services. Brilliant role, loved it. I'm still in touch with a load of people from there, you know. And from there, I decided that I was going to take a break. So I took some time out. I had my third child. Pat, my husband, was away for 6 months. And when he came back, it was time for me to go back to work. And that's when I realized I needed something flexible, and I got into teaching. Okay, so I got into, and it was teaching adults, and it was technical subjects. So it was all around web development, e-business, cloud computing, these types of subjects. However, it doesn't take long before to teach. When you start teaching, that you realize it's not enough to know the skills. You have to know how to teach. So then I went back to college. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always doing some sort of course, and I'm always doing something. So
Same here,
I went, and I love it. You know, some people can't wait to finish it, but I hate finishing. I'm like, what's next? What's next? But I realized I needed to learn how to teach, and learn how to teach adults. Because teaching adults isn't the same as teaching people who have all come up together, because it's unlikely to be the gaps that you'll have with adults and the varied experiences and the issues that adults have. And so I did a postgrad in adult and community ed. Then I did a master's in adult and community ed. And I stayed in that sector for a good few years. That was in VTOS in Navan. And towards the end of my time at VTOS, every role you come to a point where you take stock and you think, do I stay? Do I go? Do I move on? And I remember one time we were having this discussion with the students of, if you had your time again, and it was just something like, they were all adults, you'd have lots of, chats. What would you do? And they were all saying, oh, I'd be a teacher or a nurse or whatever.
Yeah.
And they turned it back on me and said, Jan, what would you do? And I didn't even think. I said cybersecurity, because it was really buzzy at the time, and I loved all the hacking stuff. And they were like, well, why don't you? And by the end of that week, I'd enrolled on the Masters in Applied Cybersecurity in IT Dublin.
Definitely a woman to act on things.
And that was around 2015, 2016. So I was well into my 40s at that stage. So when people are thinking, is it too late? No, it's not too late. Of course it's not too late. Now, I do realize I had already, done the degree, but I did all my learning part-time. Like there's very funny pictures. Every graduation picture, I'm either pregnant or there's one where I'm breastfeeding a baby in my cap and gown, because the baby was 10 days old,
Oh, I
so
love I love
I'll send you the picture.
Do.
But that's just life. Like, people wait for things to, I'll do it when this happens, when that happens. But like, life happens. So you can either just do, and time will pass, whether you're in the middle of a degree, at the end of it, whatever course you're doing. And, there's never any perfect time. So yeah, I went and I did the master's. Then I worked for another year in adult ed, and then I took a year out to see was it a runner, and it happened to be around the time of GDPR coming in. Okay.
Oh, lovely.
And and the market, the hiring market in cybersecurity and information security was pretty strong. So I put myself out there, started applying for jobs, and I was very lucky. I did get I got a role. It was a really good role. I was happy with it. But again, I had gone from working 20 minutes away term time only. And
Yeah.
now being back to 2-hour commute and 9 to 5 and all these things. And it didn't take me too long to realize, okay, this isn't working for the whole work-life balance. My kids were at a stage where they were starting to do exams and all this stuff,
Yeah.
So then I switched roles, I got a role in another fantastic company, still great connections with them. And I worked there for a couple of years, and then COVID hit. Okay. And like for a lot of people, when COVID hit, had that time again to take stock. I remember standing in my bedroom working, and I had one of these standing desks, and we were homeschooling. I'd like kids homeschooling. I had another one. I couldn't get out of bed, and and
Oh my
also
God,
trying to
it's like I blanked
support
out the horrors. Like, yeah.
parents. It was so traumatic for us. We were sort of working in crisis. I just remember thinking, can't do that, because we didn't know what the end of it was going to be. And I just remember thinking, I can't do this. And it was just everything, it was just a combination of everything. And I always knew I had a business in me. Okay. And I was 2 or 3 years into the industry, about 3 years into the industry at this stage. And all I could see was a huge skills gap and a lack of diversity, and women in particular, lack of women. Where's all the women? Right? This industry is fantastic. Where's all the women? They're missing out. So and I miss teaching. I never thought I'd miss teaching. I didn't think it was possible, because it's
It's a vocation, they say. Like, whether you maybe knew that or not, when you get into it, people say it is a vocation. Like,
because there's all this thing, people who do, people who don't teach and all this. But
I don't think that's true. At least not anymore. Like,
but I did miss it, and I could see a place for me to, create something, and that's why I started the business. And the business was to address that skills gap and also tackle the diversity. And it doesn't mean like I will provide training to anybody, but I try to make it as appealing to as many people as possible. And that means as many people as, if you can make it not just appealing to men, but make it appealing to women as well, you've doubled your market.
And how did you do that? What did you do to make it more appealing to everybody, and not just
just me? If women see me,
it makes a difference, doesn't it?
It's like, see it to be it, and I had to get over myself as well, because we get in our own way. Because I remember at the start thinking, oh, guys won't want me to, won't come to my courses because they'll only want guys to teach. Like, I was getting in my own way. That's not the way it is at all.
No.
They'll come to good quality courses delivered, in a way that is accessible, inclusive, all these things, and technically, have that good technical quality as well, and have accreditation, all these things. They don't really care. They don't care. They don't care.
You're right. As long as the material's good and they're able to get to where they want to be, like, they don't care. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and even since I've started the business, I've tweaked things as I've gone on. I've been really lucky. I've delivered a lot of courses with UCD Professional Academy. I've delivered courses with Chevron, so that's part of the Springboard. And then we're also the accredited training centre for EC Council. And then I also create my own. You mentioned the lifelong learning. I've just started a professional doctorate. Put my focus there in UL, and it's fantastic. I'm an apprentice again, part of the apprentice scheme.
Yeah, I remember we talked, maybe was it March, where you were like, thinking, am I mad? Am I going to do this? Am I mad? And then I had heard a snifter that you were maybe doing it, and I was proper excited. Like, why not?
But it's taken my own advice again, in that time will pass anyway, and I just have to make space for it. I'm at a point now, my kids are bigger. 2 of the lads have moved on. Well, they're working and in college, so they're not living at home. My 2 younger girls, one is doing Leaving Cert, and then I have a 13-year-old. So, they're not babies. They don't need the hand holding. They don't want to
be stuck to you all the time like they are when they're little.
They just need picking up and dropping and revving. That's all they need.
Yeah. Feeding from time to time, like, yeah, under the
Yeah.
door. Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's how I got to this point, and I have to say I'm really enjoying it. There's things that are working well, things not so much. With regards to getting more women, it's all about just putting myself out there, going to events, actually getting to the events, so, and making time. So it's making time. Yeah, yeah. So,
And there is a lot of events, to be fair, even on the island of Ireland as such. We have
yeah,
quite a few. Like, there's no shortage of them to go to. And, I just said at the beginning, you're at all of them, and become that kind of stable, the consistent person across all of them. I know for me, when I started going to events and I knew you at that stage, that it was a comfort when I wasn't used to going to them to see people that I knew, and I always knew you were going to be at them, and you've always been actively involved in these things. And when it comes, I feel this is a really obvious question, we get asked it all the time, but I like to see what other people would say about it. Anyway, when it comes to women in the field of cybersecurity, what are they bringing to it that men aren't?
Well, like, women are different, right? So we're going to do, and we shouldn't always be compared in relation to men, okay? Because we're not just smaller men. We're not just men with less testosterone. We're distinctly different, and we
Yes.
should celebrate that. Yeah, and in every sector, we should have 50-50.
Yeah. I mean, the market out there buying stuff is 50-50.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So it shouldn't always be in, there's a really good book, and I think I've gone on about this before, The Invisible Women by Caroline Perez. And I recommend everyone to read it, not just women, everyone to read it, because it looks at bias and data bias, because so often the males are seen as the default human, and we're making a big mistake in doing that. So whether you're looking at town planning, which is completely based on the average man's day, right? And is a complete headache for the average woman.
Yes.
To PPE, like when we saw that over lockdown and COVID, PPE, the personal protective equipment is so often made for males. So there isn't, the sizes are off, and when it comes to the likes of PPE, that can have an impact then on protection. So really, I'd have to say, for me, that was a life-changing book. Now that's a bit much, but very. No, but it was one of those books. There's a couple of books that I recommend all the time, and that's one. But it was one of those that when you read it, we're like, oh, that makes so much sense. And even things like medications, like if they're not testing medications on women, they're not getting the information, because we don't just react. We do react differently, and sometimes they're afraid because, things like pregnancy and different things. But even seatbelts, like, who designed a seatbelt? That
it drives
really
me mad.
didn't
It's the
take.
whole time, like pulling it into the middle all the time. The slides,
Let's just have a conversation, and like we then put ourselves at risk by moving the seatbelt. So
there is no win, like. And they say that
win.
crash test dummies, they've only really started using proper female crash test dummies in the last 5 years. Like, I keep expecting to hear things like when they say we've started doing that since before you were born. And I know I'm in my 40s, but that's what I expect, or at least when I was a child. But to hear in the last 5 years, or things like I was talking to somebody there recently about them offering pain relief for women that are having IUDs fitted and things like that, because there's no pain or there's no pain sensors in that. I'm like, IUDs, you don't have one then if you're thinking that. They seem so obvious to you and I, but apparently that voice didn't, weigh on those conversations before. But I think the voice of women in general is getting louder, and there's a lot less willingness to give up with it. Like,
Well, I think in medicine we now have more males than females. which again we should have
Yeah.
even. But yeah, so hopefully, but again, we have this issue where so often women are asked to fix the issue with lack of diversity and lack of women in spaces. And it's like, so how do you think we should fix this problem? They're like, well, we didn't cause it, but we're expected to fix it. So it's a societal problem. So we all need to fix it. And the same with organizations. Women don't hire themselves unless you start your own business, and then you can hire yourself.
True.
True.
But that visibility is needed. Like you were talked about it earlier. I remember, like somebody saying, I was on a panel once, and somebody had said to the four of us, they wanted the person that was interviewing us. So we want to hear what your thoughts are about being the woman on the panel because a panel needs a woman, or you're being asked to speak at events because they need to have female speakers. And how do you feel about that? Because obviously it's a box ticking exercise or whatever. And all of the other women on the panel, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. All the other women on the panel had talked about how it was, it wasn't fair, and it's not fair. And there shouldn't be box ticking, and there shouldn't be like quotas that are artificially filled. But my thoughts on it was like, okay, that's not the reason I want to be on a panel. I'd rather be recognized for my capabilities and things that I can do and will do. But if I'm not the woman on the panel, then there isn't a woman on the panel. And then other women that are watching it don't see women on the panel and don't think they can be on the panel. So as much as, we may not want to be the spokesperson or the leader or the person explaining it to everybody else, by simply being female, we end up having to be that person, whether we like it or not. That's not making excuses for anybody else. But I was talking to a lady earlier today about what I've seen is a shift in the way that men are approaching it. I'm generalizing here now, obviously not all men, but I've seen it go from, there's this women in tech, you're getting special preference, you're only getting the positions because of these groups, yada, yada, yada. And it's changed from that now to see the purpose and the point of the group to them kind of going, okay, how do I support without sounding like I'm mansplaining, or how do I get involved without taking up space that should be given to somebody else? So it's actually that's a pretty big change, but it's now a small problem versus a big one. And how would you answer that? If a guy was saying that to you, like, I want to be involved, I don't want to ask all the wrong questions or rain on someone else's parade. It's not my space, but we need them to be involved.
Sort of being a good ally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's refusing to be on manels.
True. Actually,
there's a lot of guys now will flag it when it's and a manel, which is the all male panels. So them asking the question. So if they're invited to talk to, they could ask, are there women? What women are involved? And that's not that they're just they're also expanding their own network. Because they want to know. We can all because I know often I'm asked to speak at events and I can't. Often it's not my area. I'm not just going to go on it and be shoehorned in. So I'll recommend usually Jennifer Cox, and but I always try and make a point of recommending other women, unless I don't know women. Then I'll recommend, because you want the right person, and if that person happens to be female, win-win. Okay, but you always want the expert, because it comes across very quickly if the person is just there for the wrong reasons. And that's what an ally can do, is they can ask that question and just call it out.
It's that easy. It doesn't cost you money. It doesn't cost you a lot of time and energy. It's just a question.
And so true. And even if they're hiring managers, there's so much research out there about how women and men read job descriptions, and how they rate their own suitability for jobs based on the, required and nice to haves, So women will so often want to have all the required, whereas men, most of them will be, and that's what it should be, you know.
Yeah.
So if they have fallen down there, so if they have influence in that area, to just make sure that, and there's tools that you can put your job descriptions through that will, flag if they're problematic, and then just if you have teams, make sure that everyone is getting equal opportunity. If you can mentor, that's the other thing that comes up about women in cyber, that you don't have to be a woman to mentor women. The guys can mentor as well, and it actually works not even better. It works really well because we all have different dynamics and different expertise areas, and I would often advise women to have more than one mentor.
Some of the best mentors I've had have been men. I don't know if I have had female mentors, but by far the ones that have made the most difference have been men over the years too. And it wasn't just because all I could get was male mentors at that time either. It just worked out that way as it happened.
And that's it. Yeah.
So for women coming into,
there's lots they can do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. For women coming into the industry, then, do you think, you were talking about like the job application side of things? Do you think that there's still barriers in place that are stopping women from going into the industry, or at least making them think twice about it?
Yeah. A lot of the people that I work with, who come and do a course, and then they maybe finish the course successfully and they want to start looking for a role, they are finding so many barriers to getting that first, not even the first role, getting that first interview. They're not even getting past, they're sending in applications and going no further. And I would love to have the answers. I don't have the answers. We can advise them to do a whole heap of things. We can advise them to keep upskilling, to get involved in the different groups, get involved in the Women in Cyber, the WESIS. Did I say it right?
Yeah, well done.
But not only the women in groups, there's lots of other groups, like there's Cyber Ireland chapters. There's what's the IF? Oh, I always get it.
It's IAFF, isn't it?
Yeah, that one of those ones. There's another.
There's a whole bunch of them, like.
Yeah, the whole bunch of them. There's OWASP chapters, heap of things, and get involved. Go to the events. Get involved in the CTFs, capture the flags. Have fun with it. Try and find. And the other issue that there's cybersecurity is such a huge sector. And what I mean by that, wide-ranging sector. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you can work for a dedicated cybersecurity consultancy. You can, but every bank, insurance company, large company will have all their IT, their information security, their cybersecurity departments, but they'll all be called different things. All the roles are called different things. So, there's no consistency. No. And it's very hard if you're early entry and I love the tech side, or I love the compliance side, or I love this side. They don't know what role they're even applying for, And if they go into LinkedIn and put in pen tester, or put in ethical hacker, or put in information security consultant, it's just so.
I saw one recently that was referred to as Ghostbuster. So I mean, it's very witty and it's very cool, but I would never think to search for Ghostbuster when I'm looking for something.
So it's an absolute minefield, And I think a lot of people, again, will get their first role through networking, through who they know, or if their organisation is big enough and willing, they may let them move laterally into a role or give them a project or something. But they're coming up that catch-22 all the time of, you have no experience. How do you get experience? You need to get a job. How do you get a job? So, and especially for older people who are either returning, because we have so many women who took a break and our parents, it's not just women nowadays, people who take time out to raise their families, or maybe they've got caring commitments with parents, maybe they've suffered illness, all these different things, that they take a break, maybe they've been traveling and they've returned. So they're returners, and there are dedicated programs for returners that will upskill them, but still not all those returner programs result in a role. They can give you all the elements, but they mightn't get you over the last part. And then we often have women who maybe their relationships are broken down, and they now find themselves in a position where they have a family to support. They now have to start paying a mortgage, or whatever they may not have they were doing as a couple before, they're now doing alone. And then we have career changers, people who do decide, like I did, new career. And why not? And how do we account and get credit for all of those transferable skills? There's no real way of doing that. So it takes a special hiring person to see that. But often there's recruiters doing the gatekeeping.
Or ATS systems, which I love so much, not. Like I love a good loophole, as I will put it. So like, I wanted to get into cybersecurity. I had lots of experience working in support and then working in individual contributor roles beyond that. But I hadn't got the credentials to go into cybersecurity. So I went to a cybersecurity company and I went into a support role. So, and I've been doing mentoring for years. I've often come across that kind of situation. A couple of times I've come across people who were teachers who are like, do I need to go back and do a degree from scratch? And, it's up to everybody how they want to approach it. And they could want to do it that way. But like you say, sometimes circumstances dictate maybe the fact that you need to earn is the thing that comes up faster. But there's ways, like I said, as a teacher, continue to teach. But if you do certain qualifications and then become a teacher, then you're in the trade and meeting more people in the trade, and you may not be in the side of it you want to be to begin with, but now you're making your connections, you're getting to know people, you're learning about roles that are out there and companies that are out there, and then make your move when you're ready to do it. But you'll be known because as a teacher, you're in front of X number of people for every course that you're teaching. So even if you don't like networking, you're naturally going to build up with these people. Like, I used to always hate networking, hate it with a passion. Yeah, I talked to the wall, but I just found it so difficult. And it's only when the time came around when I kind of stopped for a minute and looked at the work I'd been involved in, say with WESIS and with Cyber Women Ireland and Cyber Ireland and all these other different bits over the years, that I realized that there's this phenomenal network there. And it's not even just about, I'm going to tap people up for jobs. It's just, if I have a stupid question that I don't want to ask somebody in work, I have a massive network of people I can ask that question to. If I just want to hop on and have a conversation with somebody who understands what I felt like when I hit perimenopause, or, when during COVID, when we're all banging our heads off the wall, wondering what to do with the kids, there was a wonderful network of people that were around for that too. Or what we see in our WhatsApp groups for WESIS, as you know well, I always say, Jan is our little, she knows where to get all of the training at and how to do it in the most inexpensive way. But
I'm a really bad salesperson. But you can do it with me, but you can do it for free here.
Exactly. But you've seen yourself, most of the questions we get asked in there are things like, does this job description actually fit this role? Or I'm thinking of doing this course, but do you think it's the right one, or should I do something else? And every now and again, I've had people that will ping and they'll say, this has happened to me in work and it didn't feel right, or it didn't seem fair. And I just want to talk to somebody about what I should or shouldn't do there. And that's the kind of network I didn't know I was building, and I'm really glad to have. And of course, absolutely, I'm sure it'll benefit when it comes to go, I want to work there. Any chance you can refer me in? Yeah, that kind of stuff is going to work. But there's like a double layer to it that's so much more meaningful. And yes, when you come, you're going to know, like any job that I've looked at in any company, the first thing I'll do is reach out to somebody I know who works in that company, or somebody I know who knows somebody who works in that company, and say, can I have 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes on the phone with you? I just want to find out what your thoughts are about working for that company. Because the number one thing to me is, am I going to thrive there culture-wise?
Yeah.
Because the tech I can do. And if you've studied the tech, and even if you haven't studied the tech, you can learn the tech.
Can learn the tech.
But I can't learn how to suffer assholes willingly, basically. And if that's what they're like, and I don't feel appreciated and I don't feel respected, then I don't want to work there. And I have yet to come across any woman that I can get on a phone with and that can blatantly fib and say it's fantastic when it's not, even when they're trying to be politically correct and say, well, it's all right, I get my holidays and I come in at 9, I go home at 5, but it's there, you can read it, and that's so valuable, because you don't want to put all the effort into looking for a place, then to going through the interviews, getting into a place, and then finding out it's absolute hellhole to work in. We vet so hard.
That's brilliant. I'm delighted to hear that, because that, like, I tell people, be proactive. Yeah. And that's exactly what you're saying. But was it intentional when you started doing that? Did you know that would be the end point?
God, no.
No. And those people could probably refer you then, because so many organizations have referral programs.
And they've offered to do that kind of stuff.
And that gives you the step up then as well.
And if you're like me and you don't have the classic training, then you don't get past ATS systems. And if you're the kind of people who are looking for their first in, they, I'm not sure they'll all get past the ATS systems too. But if you've got a network, I mean, I've referred people in places that I've worked and all over the world. So even if you're the kind of person, I think that if you're managing your family and your household and your studies or your job, whatever you're doing, and you simply don't have the time to go out to networking events, there is any number of them online as well. And I made lots of friends during COVID in lots of really different corners of the world who, when the time comes, they're looking for a role in, I don't know, San Francisco in our company. Then I was like, okay, I'll refer you in, which was always a delight and a joy for the people in the recruitment side, because like, how are you referring somebody from Ireland into a role in San Francisco? But that's how women work. And if you're applying with global companies, or even if you're not, our network is so small, even globally, that someone will know someone, and that's how it goes. So if that's what you're telling people to do, I can't vouch for it enough. I tell people all the time to do that.
And when I'm talking to somebody, like, what's your end goal? Like, what's your perfect role? What's your perfect company? And work towards that, because so often we just let things happen to us. Like we might send out 100 CVs and then you get one interview and you go for that without actually thinking it through.
Yeah.
The other issue that we have is a lot of people who are attracted to this industry aren't extroverts, like introverts.
It's even harder.
And I would consider myself an introvert. I know some people might be surprised, but it takes a lot of effort for me to walk into that big room, and you have to fake it till you fake it till you make it, and all these things. Yeah, and like I've the benefit of age, but that doesn't really make it easier.
It makes you invisible, though. I have to say the invisibility that comes with being over 40 is a joy to behold. I love it.
You can really get walked through. Yeah, no, it's amazing. But and that's something, especially with younger women, they'd be saying that they're nervous. They don't want to walk in on their own. So, and I have to say, the likes of the WISES community is great for that, because we will meet up, or we'll have a meeting point or something like that.
Exactly, and it makes it easier. And you'll know particular faces, because I stick mine all over LinkedIn, because I hate introducing myself to people. It makes me the most nervous and sick of anything in the whole world. So I go, please come over and introduce yourself to me, and I will talk to you like I've got to use all my words before the end of the sentence.
Yeah.
But it makes me most anxious introducing myself to other people. So the combo of both, me going, hey, that's what I look like, come over and say hi, and people that are new who don't feel comfortable in those rooms, actually works really, really well, because I'll talk the hind legs off them, and then they feel like they're,
You're fantastic. But can we normalize ID badges front and center, up the middle?
Yes.
Ideally on the forehead, but
yes. And big writing, so you don't have to stare at it.
and most times I know the name, I just haven't the confidence to say it,
Yeah.
because
You're not from the world of Hun then, Jan. I'm from Wexford, so we say Hun. So 99% of the time I'm like, oh my God, how are you, Hun? It's great to see
yeah,
you. Because I won't
yeah,
remember people's names, but that tends to get me out of trouble a lot of the
yeah.
time.
But there's newer conferences that don't have the name on the thing. And I was like, oh, please,
Not a
please.
hope, like, yeah. Some people are so good with it. I am not. But then, in the education side of things, what would you like to see on the cybersecurity education side that should change,
Yeah,
regardless of women or not? Like,
yeah. Starting earlier. We need to look at models in other countries. Estonia are doing it really well. Now they're doing it off the back of a huge attack that they suffered a few years ago.
yeah,
But they, like, kids don't remember when they started learning about cybersecurity, cyber awareness. If we're leaving it till the kids get the phones, too late at that point.
yeah,
It should be embedded. We should have cyber secure citizens, not just cyber secure workers. Everyone has to use the internet. Everyone has smartphones. So whether you're, a young person, a child, even, they're getting younger and younger, up till like our parents, our grandparents have to use technology. And there was a huge digital transformation over lockdown,
yeah,
and it's not going away. So the likes of the government services, banks, they're all still using those technologies, and we need to make sure we're using them securely. Yeah, so starting earlier, make it fun. Make there's so many initiatives that are out there. There's the likes of like Blessing is doing the Cyber for School Girls, which is getting, directly getting more skills for secondary school students. Mark Lane and his team in 0 Days, they're doing fantastic work with the Capture the Flags, and they have a dedicated competition just for secondary schools, and they also have boot camps for girls and young women who to upskill and learn those ethical hacking, open source intelligence, all those CTF skills, and they're a huge amount of fun. They're great again if you have kids who are into hacking, maybe sort of different types of interests. They can network and meet other kids like them, find their tribe. It's so important. And it's not saying that, but it has that element as well. Because I know a lot of young women now, so many of the social media influence is all about changing your bodies. Your bodies are,
stop.
yeah, it's all big lips and all these different things. But yeah, they can just be themselves, in whatever form that takes. And it's very inclusive, very accepting, and fun. Okay, there's
Nobody
usually
cares.
pizza
Exactly.
involved.
It's about what you're doing technically that matters. That you
Yeah,
made me laugh.
and and they nurture. So you don't have to go and win your first competition. Nobody wins their first competition. It's something that they do over a number of years. So if they get them young enough, and then they bring. They are also, this is Mark Lane and 0 Days, they also do the team for the European Cybersecurity Challenge. So to be part of that, you have to be under 25, and you get to go to cities in Europe and compete representing Ireland. And that is fabulous.
Yeah.
That is a
That is
fantastic opportunity. But you can learn on YouTube. There's YouTube videos. There's I can send you a few links.
everywhere.
But the Cyber Mentor is one, and it's like 15 hours of ethical hacking, and it's completely free. It's a YouTube course. And then we're also really lucky in Ireland that there's so much resources and funded courses. So at the very least, we have eCollege. So if you are over 18 and you have a PPS, you can access any of the courses on eCollege. And at the moment, Pen Test Plus is there, Security Plus is there. These are all fantastic.
I'm doing both of those.
Yeah, I'm doing Pen Test.
A little lady told me about that.
Yeah. And then there's even, springboard courses. And sometimes people think Springboard is only for postgrads. They're not. There's level 7, which is an ordinary degree. There's level 8, which is your honours degree. So you don't have to have it. Now, obviously, it's not going to have the full range of different courses. But Springboard focuses on Smartest Human Capital Initiative. So it focuses on skills where there is need. So
There's a
you
lot
won't
on the
get your...
Springboard courses,
Oh,
actually.
this is huge. Yeah. So a lot around environment, AI, cybersecurity. And I don't really look beyond that, but I'm sure there's loads.
There is.
Yeah, and then there's loads of other free stuff. IBM have Skills Builder, Cisco have Skills for All, and Fetch courses is another one that is government funded in Ireland. And the thing about Fetch courses, your local ETB, any of the courses they run, you may not realise that they're accessible for everyone, and they're not. You don't have to pay for them. It's part of being a citizen in this country. That you can have access to any of those courses, and a lot of them are part-time, a lot of them are online.
It's all very flexible.
So, and I've done lots of them. You've done a few of them.
Just a few.
Yeah.
You made me laugh in the beginning there. I was trying not to snort laugh. You were talking about teaching them when they were young, and I was reminded, I tried really hard with my lads to teach them awareness. I tend to assume an awful lot because it's what I work in all the time, and I forget that they have to be taught these things. And my 10-year-old got a VR at Christmas, and he's on limited time because he's 10, and these things are huge, and for his physical health and safety.
Yeah.
But he was asking about who can I play with, who can I connect with, and I'm like, you're not connecting with anybody else, or if you are, I said, you don't use your real name, don't tell him who you are, how old you are, where you're from, all the standard things that you tell him. And I drilled it into him for ages before he ever played, and he was really good, really religious about making sure he never did. I once heard him going, I'm 18, with his little 10-year-old voice, But he was playing on the PS, I think it was, but he was talking to some of the same people, had a headset on, was playing one of the games, and but quietly, he wasn't speaking. So I went into the room tired after whatever I was doing that day, and there was like a bowl on the floor and like a crisp packet somewhere or something, nothing, no big major crime. And I was like, Oliver Cox, pick up your damn rubbish, I swear to God, I just want to sit down, and there's stuff all over the place, and you never pick up, and
all coming out.
And then I stopped, and then he kind of looked at me like I'd got 10 heads, and I was like, what? And he presses a button on his headset, and he goes, you told me never to tell anybody my name, and you just shouted, Oliver Cox, at the top of your voice. And I never felt so done in my whole life. That was only about a month ago that happened. He managed to, all the way from Christmas to now, do exactly what he was told, and he was livid. Like, he was livid that I'd given him away. And he's so right.
Rolling back on that one.
He was so right. I couldn't even laugh at the time. I was so cross with myself. But now I can laugh at it. Like, so you told him my name. Oh my God, sorry. Just reminded me, and I could feel myself laughing.
Yeah, but it is so hard with the cyber awareness, so just using technology as we usually do, because the attacks have become so sophisticated.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's very hard to spot a phishing email that has been so well crafted for you. Like, we tend to pat ourselves on the back because we notice the really obvious ones, the ones that come from the bank that you're not a client of and all these.
Yeah.
But the ones we don't see are the ones that we have engaged with and we've moved on.
Yeah.
Like my own son got caught with the eFlow attack, with the text message. Yeah. And they took over €1,200 from his account, 2 withdrawals, and he did get the text message from the bank, and he said, did you approve this? He said no. He rang the bank, he went to the bank, payments still went through. Now he eventually got it back, but it was just one of those perfect storm situations in that he got the text message around the time he was changing banks, and he used eFlow. So
it's just,
none of us are immune. No.
And they'll send that to thousands of people. They're going to land with somebody who's gone through the toll and needs to pay it.
Exactly.
I remember listening to a speaker who talks about social engineering, and he was saying that he was organising an event, and he was about to fly out for the event, and he was waiting on swag to arrive. And he said as he was going out the door, and he was up to his eyeballs, in the chaos of it, going to get his taxi to go to the airport, and he said an email came through from AWS or Amazon saying that your order has been delayed, the shipment won't make it. And he was in a panic going, oh my God, I can't believe this. And he went and he clicked on the link. He said the second he clicked on the link, he went, oh my God.
I've done it.
And he talks about this all the time and talks about how not to get caught out. But to be fair to him, he openly spoke about it. He said that was perfect time. And he said as soon as he clicked the link, he said as he was clicking it, he saw like mugs or something on the list. And he was like, I didn't order any mugs. And he knew that it wasn't right. But it was too late at that point. And then like as he was getting his flight, he had to cancel everything and sort it all out from there. But he talked about it because I think when people like that talk about getting caught out with things, it makes us mere mortals. Well, I'm not even a mere mortal in that case because we're involved in the trade, but it makes the mere mortal feel more like, well, if they can get caught, then, you know, I'm not embarrassed when it happens to me, and I'll tell people when it happens, because the biggest challenge is when you don't tell people, the more time that goes by, the more damage that gets done in that case.
Absolutely. And you see, the service providers need to do more as well. You know, the insurance companies, the banks, the likes of eFlow, because my mum was getting all these eFlow emails looking for €40, and I kept saying, it's a scam, ignore. And then she kept saying to me, you're getting those emails. And I said, send it to me. So she sent me the email. But it turned out she had changed cars and it was genuine. She owed them 40 quid and they were threatening all sorts, and I was just completely disregarding, saying it's a scam.
Because 90% of the time,
she's really getting the bailiffs at the door. You know,
they can't really argue. If they did a better job of what they did, then there would be, you know, less of an issue for people that are customers of it. Like, and there's some like eFlow, Revenue, and there's like a couple of the banks then as well are the ones we see all the time. And during COVID, there was the one telling people that, you know, they were due to have a test or they had a test, or so somebody was positive that they knew and they needed to have a test. And so many people got caught out by that, like to purchase the test, you know. And it's just, you're playing on people, and it's so just mean. But
and it's a numbers game, you know, they'll get lucky.
And if people are lovely, you don't want to tell the lovely people that you have to stop trusting people the way that you used to. Breaks my heart, but it also has to be done. Like, and I think with older people, especially my parents, they'll use my mother will use technology, my dad won't. But things like online banking and such. But there's only so far you can kind of take them on that without then bringing in like biometrics, and you know, they're using two-factor. But my mum only turns on her phone to log into the bank, like she doesn't use her phone otherwise. And you know, it's a lot of steps to be absorbing when you're in your 70s or older, you know, taking it all on board new. But that'll be other way.
And then what can happen is they stop telling you when they know they've done stuff.
Yes, I have heard that too, and that's awful. Like, I want people to never feel guilty about it. I might laugh once we've sorted it out. I might laugh, but we'll laugh together then at that stage. But I'd rather know when I can fix stuff. Well, Jan, it has been a blast. I would talk to you forever. Well, I do talk to you all the time anyway.
I know, we have to.
A nice few little nuggets and bits and pieces in there. The only thing you didn't mention was Fortify Institute by name.
Oh.
Hey, that's
Fortify.
her company.
The Fortify Institute. We do online cybersecurity training, ethical hacking training, information security, and cloud security for professionals. Now, we also do training for SMEs, micro SMEs. So if you're running a business, you can get free training. I'm offering that for free, and that's on demand. We'll have the most popular course at the moment is the Certified Cybersecurity Technician course, which is an on-demand course, and it's a scholarship. So it's accredited by EC Council. It covers, you know, so many areas around cybersecurity. It's a really nice entry-level course, and it has the practical side of things. You get access to the labs, and the exam. Not easy, but the exam is proctored, so you have somebody watching you take the exam. And with the scholarship, it's €199. So that, I have like more than 60 people on that at the moment, and we're having a webinar in a couple of weeks, just like a Q&A tutorial, as even though it's on demand, still like that connection and, you know, the opportunity for people to ask questions, and then I learn about it as well, what's working, what's not working, and I can feed that back.
They meet each other.
Yeah, No, it's great. And get in touch if anyone has any questions. I have some nice blogs up on the website on 420 Institute about getting started in cyber in Ireland and all the training opportunities that I mentioned already, the Fetch courses and e-college and Springboard, they're all there as well.
Super. Thank you so much, Jan. It's been a blast. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jennifer.